I suddenly decided that I'm going to change all our macaron flavors. I was like, we have 12. I'm just gonna
Do it.
rapidly just change them because who cares? Like, they're new flavors and they're great. I kept two, three of the classics and I changed everything else. And that
Blasphemy.
1 month, it was a bloodbath. Like, I can't even tell you, like, sales just dipped so much. I was just like, never making a decision like this ever again.
Hi, and welcome to Big Food Energy, a podcast that spotlights some of the most exciting food businesses in India and around the world. Today, we're speaking with Pooja Dhingra, the founder of the Le 15 chain of patisseries. Pooja is widely credited with having blown up the gourmet dessert space in India, powered by her social media savvy and ability to easily identify new avenues for business. Pooja has been featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list both in India and Asia. She hosts the extremely popular podcast No Sugar Coat, which I'm a big fan of, and has published 7 books. It seems like there's nothing Pooja can't do. And when most people think of Pooja, they see the many wins and the many awards that her journey is dotted with. But what they don't see are her struggles and her challenges and the many sacrifices that she's made along the way. Today, we're speaking to Pooja about all of that. Hi, Pooja. Welcome to Big Food Energy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How's it going? Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm very excited to speak to you. It's going well. I'm at home doing this right now, so it's nice to not be in the kitchen for once.
So we're just going to get straight into it, Pooja. I'd like to start at the very beginning. Not too many people know that you had initially picked law as a career path. How did you realize that this wasn't something that you wanted to do? And more importantly, how did you break it to your folks? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
So I started baking when I was 6 and I loved the whole baking journey. I used to take brownies and cookies to school every week, and that was what I loved doing. I just didn't know at that point that this could be kind of like a career option that you could
Yeah.
make, especially as a young girl. So that was never something that was part of the plan. I used to love writing. And I used to watch a lot of legal shows. I think somewhere I just got influenced by it and said, okay, if I have to pick something to do, let it be law. Just 2 weeks in, I was like, okay, I don't think this is for me. Something doesn't feel right. I felt out of place. I felt like, I joke often when I'm asked this question. When we were joining college, we had to go pick up our books, and I just saw these and I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to do something completely different. I would dream about opening a cafe someday. We had Olive, and I would think of, okay, maybe a restaurant like Olive at some point would be nice.
Yeah.
At that point, I would see AD Singh, and you'd go out for dinner, and he'd be there, and he'd meet the guests. I saw that as an extension to my personality. I love people. I love feeding people. So I thought, this could be, this kind of makes sense. This kind of fits. And I went and told my parents. And thankfully, my parents have been extremely supportive. Now, this is where I got to, I don't know if I should even say it, but it's the benefit of patriarchy, right? Because there was no expectations from the daughter, because it was just like, okay,
Yeah, okay, go
all
do
the
your thing.
expectations are from the son, and the son has to do this, and the daughter's like, okay, you want to do this cafe thing, cool. But, study, that's important. Like, education is important. So if you're doing it, like, study. But I was a very average student in school. I was a hardworking girl, but at the end of the day, my results were always like, somewhere in the middle range. So I don't think there was any expectation that our daughter will go and do and study science and she'll do that. There was nothing. There was like, do what makes you happy. And I feel like not having that pressure on you is just so liberating. And I was lucky that I had the backing saying, one, that education is important, and do what makes you happy. So I think the combination of this kind of took me to Switzerland, which I'm, forever grateful for. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I completely identify because, I'm the youngest sibling. So it was kind of similar for me as well. My sister is the super overachiever person. My brother was the boy. And for me, it was just like, yeah, do your thing. It's fine. Like you're the third one, you can figure it
Yeah.
out. And that sort of, gave me the room to explore all of the things that I did explore. But Pooja, what I think is really interesting is that you went to Switzerland, you came back, and very soon after you started Love 15. That was when you were 23. And of course, people say that it's all very exciting and it's very glamorous. But like at 23, I was figuring out who I was as a person. Uh, I think your professional life, it's like a really steep learning curve because there's just so much to learn. You're trying to figure out how to be an adult. So what was it like starting a business in your 20s? Because it could be, I'm sure it was an incredibly scary thing to do.
I think at 37, I'm still kind of figuring out who I am. So I think that that journey never kind of ends.
Me
It
too.
just goes on and on. I went to Switzerland. I was there for 4 years, and I went through different departments. And when I went to the pastry kitchen, I still remember it so clearly. And it was as if like this, I had this eureka moment, and I was like, okay, pastry, that's what I really want to do. And at that point, I came back from Switzerland, and then I told my parents I want to go study pastry in France. And at that point, like my parents were like, okay, this education has been quite expensive for us already. To again send you for 9 months, it's a big investment for us. I was very determined, and I wrote this business plan for my parents, which was like a note on a piece of paper. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go study pastry. I'm going to come back. I always like had this little chatter about central kitchen restaurant, like this whole thing was always discussed very like openly. I didn't even know what most of it like what it would mean to execute it, but I knew that okay, in theory, if I know that rents in Bombay are high, so if I take a small central kitchen, and then if I have a product that I can just distribute, I'll kind of do that. And that's
Sure.
exactly what I did. I did. So it was my mom's dream to do to go to Cordon Bleu, right? Like she grew
Oh,
up
wow.
baking a lot as well, and she went to she had a small business out of that she ran from home, where I would help her with the chocolate mousse and chocolate and all of that. And so for her, it was like this cordon bleu was like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
dream. And she's like, okay, if I couldn't do it, and if we are able to send you, and we have the ability for you to get this education, then we'll do it. And yeah, so I went to Paris, and then when I came back, I was like very restless because I knew now I had this pressure that my parents had spent all this money on my education. I want to make sure that I pay them for my education. Like that was always in at the back of my mind. Again, now this is 15 years ago. There were no like standalone pastry shops. Yobra only had the Colaba branch. So I went, I met Kenaz, I said hello, all of that. And she's like, no, we're not really looking for anybody in our kitchen right now. And then I just found it very hard to find a job because all the restaurant, like the hotel chains, they hire from within their schools. So it was
Right.
like this random, and at that point, it wasn't very, it wasn't very common for a girl to go out, study, come back, and look for a job. So I think I started Love 15 because I didn't feel like I had any other option back then. It started with this gumption, and I often say I really miss the inexperience of youth that kind of
Yeah.
makes you believe that you can achieve everything. And I feel like I was more ambitious, I was more driven when I was 23. Today, I have all the failures in my cap as well. That whenever something comes up, I like react for maybe not that space of purity of like, oh, I can do this. So was it scary? 100%. I think I cried almost every day, like for a few months. Every day I went to work, and every day I would call my mother crying, like, today this happened and this happened. And and then at some point we had this kitchen consultant. I'm sure he's been in the business for so many years, and he's seen this girl. He probably thinks she's like this spoiled papa ki pari kind of girl who's come in. And I still remember when I set up my kitchen, he told me, he's like, every day is going to be like war. Every day you're going to come and learn new things, and you're going to be faced with new challenges, and you just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you started out, of course, no one knew what a macaron was. Cupcakes obviously were these things that you got, at the front of a bakery store, but they weren't the most appetizing. Um, so, but when you came along, suddenly macarons are everywhere, cupcakes are everywhere. I guess my question is, how did you manage to make like this fancy French dessert so accessible, so non-intimidating? I know you use social media a lot, but yeah, tell me about it.
So actually when I started, there wasn't much of social media to begin with. So 14 years ago, it was mainly a blog that I had that I would write. And I think that, and you worked for Brown Paper Bag at that time, and we did a
Yeah.
lot of work together with
Yeah.
BPV as well. I was lucky that I got a lot of media attention because it was, some like a young girl doing something new. So there was a lot of organic kind of traction that we got. And I'll never forget this actually. And coming from Chef Manu at that point. He was, I was 23 and Love Cooking was brand new, and we just had like a little kiosk under Good Earth, and everyone was, everyone would stop there. They'd buy. And like I was so paranoid about the brand and the packaging and the way everything looked and felt, because I really felt like that was the experience that I wanted someone to have. And I remember first dinners that Chef Manu had hosted at Olive Mahalakshmi for all of us. And we walked in and he just looked at the box and he looked at me and he's like, how can someone so young get it so right? And for
Wow.
me, it was just, you're sitting on a gold mine, you don't even know it. And I just looked at him and I was like, when you're like this person who's not sure of themselves and you're just like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this, but you're so into what you're doing, you're not sure of and you're not looking for the reactions of others. But I feel like
Mm.
at least, these things would happen and you'd be like, okay, I have something worthwhile, I have something good. And that kind of gives you the confidence to, keep putting it
Absolutely.
out there. So I just made sure that I was present everywhere. So I would just take a table at all these exhibitions, whether it was
And
Blue Sea
physically
or it
stand
was,
there and
this, yeah,
explain
and
your
physically
product.
stand there with and explain, do tastings. Because, with food, that at the end of it,
Yeah.
it's word of mouth.
Lovely. And obviously, that must have been tiring. In your 20s, you have lots of time, you have lots of energy, and you think that that's the only thing. But I'm sure along the way, there were some challenges. You maybe lost a couple of friends. I think we've spoken about that in brief before. But if you could tell me about what
Yeah.
that is, because a lot of people don't see that aspect of it. They just see the outside and they're like, okay, that's great. She's hustling. She's everywhere. She must be doing well.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
sometimes you're just kind of dying from inside.
All the time. No, I just feel like the first 3 years of Love 15 were very defining in terms of, because I had just come back, I had all this ambition. My friends were still friends that I had from school and college, that were still, so most of them were still, had always lived in the city and they were living their lives. And I had just come and I was like, okay, I want to do something and I want to create something new. Wanting and having this need, and as much as people talk about work-life balance, etc. When you start
Yeah.
anything new, chances of you're not going to have it. Like
Yeah.
it's just how it works, right? Like when you have a baby, you're going the first couple of years, you're not going to have any time for anything else, and then
Yeah.
eventually you do. It's the same with starting a business, and I feel that maybe all my time, I would wake up at 7 and get to the kitchen and then, finish the day by like 10, 11. And by the time I would come home, I would be so tired that I would not want to go anywhere. So
Yeah.
it kind of, in 2, 3 years, I looked up and I was like, wow, I've lost a lot of connections. I skipped, birthdays and weddings and anniversaries. And it's sad because I
Yeah.
made this my priority. But, the ones who got it and the ones who understood, they're still around, and
Yeah.
it kind of opened my life up to, introduce new people into my life who kind of were at the
Yeah.
same wavelength, who were doing similar things, who were hustling just as hard and who were setting their own businesses up. So, and through this period, I kind of met a great set of women who I look up to and I admire and I get a lot of my inspiration from. So I guess in a way it kind of worked out. It was good. I mean, I don't think it needs to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway, that don't believe everything you see on the internet, especially social media. I mean,
Yeah.
people show you, and we all do it, right? Like people show you the best two
Best
minutes or the
parts.
snippets of their life, the best parts of their life. And it's really hard. Like I feel like even with running a business, yeah, you see a new menu coming up and you see all of this, but you're not going to see there was a water leakage today that we had to fix, and something else happened and something else broke down, and the supply of chocolate didn't come in, and chocolate prices have now gone up. I just don't have the bandwidth to sit and document this is going
Of
wrong in my
course.
life right now, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just feel that don't believe everything you see on the internet is what I want to say.
Absolutely. No, I totally vouch for that. People ask me all the time, you must have such a glamorous job. You eat out all the time. You like go to these fancy restaurants and travel. And I'm just like, buddy,
I
stand
don't
on the
want to
weight
look.
scale.
I want. You're like, I want to sit at home and eat dal khichdi today.
That's
That's all I
literally all
want.
I want to do. The phase when you're an entrepreneur, you're sort of starting out. So my husband, as you know, Advait, is also an entrepreneur, and so I've sort of seen his journey. I've had a front row to his entrepreneurial journey. And when he was starting out, all he could talk about was his business. Literally anywhere we went, to a party, to chill, for a movie, he was just constantly talking about his business. To a point that, like, we were at a wedding, and some friend was like, bro, chill out. Like, it's fine. You don't need to talk about your business all the time. Um, and then he was like, oh, should I maybe stop talking about my business? And then he was like, no, I don't think so. But I guess my point is, as an entrepreneur, you have to be slightly shameless about identifying opportunities, and you have to keep going at it. Do you have any advice for people who might struggle with this, or who might be a bit shy?
Yeah, the thing is, I didn't even realize that it was that people saw it in that manner, right? Because for me, and I guess most entrepreneurs, because you're so passionate about what you're
Yeah.
doing. And my personality is just that if I love something, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to talk about it and I'm just going
Yeah.
to keep going, right? You have to be the spokesperson for your product. And I
Yeah.
see this with so many of my friends as well who hesitate to put out their work. And, I'm always pushing. I'm like, be proud of what you've created, what you've built, what you've written, and share it. And people who are really cheering for you will
Yeah.
truly appreciate that. And
Yeah.
obviously, it reaches a point where you also know where to draw the line. Because I have somebody who now has WhatsApps every day updates from what their business is doing, and I'm like, this is a bit much.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God, I
don't
know one of
don't
those people as
don't
well.
yeah, I'm like, don't WhatsApp me every day what you're doing. But
Yeah,
I would,
I don't
but
need
I
to know.
love to, like if a friend of mine is doing something amazing and putting it out there, and it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
I, and I think we all go through phases. I think I also went through, and like when I think back, I do think that in the initial years of Love 15, that was all I could talk about. That was all I would share. No matter where I would go, I would only talk about it. And it kind of helped. It helped it become what it is today. And now I realize that it doesn't need so much of me pushing it that much. It's 14 years, the product, people know, people love it. It's part of routine and all of that. And now you just have to do things that keep it going, but there's no need to like propel it so much. And I just feel that if you're a young entrepreneur watching this, you stand by what you do, like be proud of it, share it, make sure that people that are around you purchase from you and buy from you.
Awesome. That's really good advice. Cool. So, of course, just to shift gears a bit, during the pandemic, many businesses struggled to stay afloat. Um, I'm sure you also made many difficult decisions. Love 15 Cafe was one of them. Was that the hardest, or would you say there were harder decisions that you had to make along the way, and you're still maybe struggling with them?
I, in fact, think this last year was very tough for me, or
Okay.
was also a very challenging year that has made me see things very differently. But of course, I think there was nothing like COVID because nobody saw it coming, right? Like, no matter how much you prepare for disaster and you prepare for a rainy day and you prepare for things to go bad, you just never prepare for the world to stop. Like that just
Yeah.
never happens. And I
Yeah.
think that was one thing that really I think took all of us by surprise in the food industry, and me specifically. At that point, we were going to do a fundraise in a couple of months, and that was the plan. So we didn't have the money to just burn and keep going, and so I kind of took the decision, and I felt like I share so much of my life and my business online that I wanted to even tell people what I was kind of going through in those moments. And I did write that, piece for CNT, which till today I meet people, when they meet me for the first time, they're like, we read that in our morning meeting in the office, or
Oh, wow.
we read it out and we had tears. And the amount of love, Smita, that I saw
That's
after that
amazing.
for me, it was reassuring to another level that, okay, what you built is special and you should be
Yeah.
proud of it. And these are the circumstances now. They don't define who you are, what your business is. Unfortunately, these are the cards that are on the table now, and what are you
Yeah.
going to do and how you're going to play them. I did the best that I could, and I think eventually it all comes down to that. I used to write like notes every night. I used to be in my parents' home, in my room that I grew up in. I had a specific chair by the window, and it was like pinned off silence. This never happened.
Yeah.
I used to live close to Siddhivinayak temple. Like I'm used to like every Monday night
Noise
there
and
being so
horns
much
and
chaos, and
yeah.
no, yeah, and I kind of I've grown to enjoy it and love it because that's all I know. And
Yeah.
it was like pinned off silence, and I used to just be sitting with my laptop and looking at these Excel sheets, trying to see if there's anything I could do, and just like the tears running down my face, like thinking that there's really there's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And after a while you're like, okay, I can keep crying about this, or I can take what I have, and there's no lemon so sour that you can't make some kind of lemonade with it. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I would motivate myself and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah. It's insane. It's Was that the hardest point of COVID, or was there some other point? I mean, you also mentioned that last year was really hard, so I really want to get into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for COVID, yes, that was a really tough time. For me personally, I feel just last year as well has been a year of figuring it out, and I think that it's amazing that even after doing this for so many years,
Yeah.
you have to keep going back to the drawing board and kind of asking yourself what you do and why you do it. And I feel like every decade or so, one of my friends, she says every decade or so there comes an entire change in the whole F&B space around across the world, right? Like, so
Yeah.
habits change, the way people consume things change, there's a new generation. So you can't keep running things the way you run them. So how do you adapt to that change? What do you do? So internalizing all of that and just kind of asking myself hard questions of, where do I see Low 15 maybe 5 years from now? What do I need to do? What do I see for my own life? And it's not a straight up answer that you get. It's you work towards different things. And yeah, so I think that for me personally, that asking myself all those questions, coming to those answers, I was going through a really low phase, and I was trying to figure out, I was feeling a bit lost. I was feeling a bit confused with my own identity and kind of seeing
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. And I did the third season of the podcast, which really helped. The conversations of having these conversations with all these chefs and restaurateurs, kind of seeing their journeys, really helped me, and that's the reason why I do it. And then MasterChef came my way, which really
Was a
changed the way
huge
I
deal.
looked at things. It just pulled me out of my comfort zone, because I feel like when I was first offered it, I had like this big knot in my stomach and this, self doubt and fear. And will I be able to do this? Is this going to be how much of about food? Do I know? Can I really? And I was like, you know what? Cut yourself some slack, and you don't have
You've been
to
doing this for so
know
long.
everything
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, like there, just you are who you are, and they've come to you and they've chosen you, so they clearly see something and believe in you as a person. So I was like, okay, I used to always say no to things that came my way like this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take this. And just being away from what I did for a living day after day, and being taken away
Yeah.
from that space and being and put somewhere else, gave me so much perspective and fueled me to come back to, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I love doing. And I kind of now have some answers. But yeah, that was what
Wow.
last year was about.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what sort of perspective did you get on the business while being on on the sets of MasterChef with Vikas and Ranveer and making these crazy deals?
Biggest lesson that I learned from both of them was to not take yourself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was just such a revelation to be with these two who are like, I can't even talk about what they've achieved and who they are as people and all of that, right? And there was just so much strength and courage to do and chase whatever you want to do without taking yourself very seriously. I think that really helped me just do things because of the joy, and that's what I kind of went back to, right? Like, this is why I started it. This is why I started it, because I, and it goes back to your why. Like, why are you doing this? And then I think everything else stems from that. And somewhere along the way, I guess it's easy when you're doing something for so long to forget why you're doing it. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was kind of like a reminder. And also, I kind of got to, because when you're just drowning in your problems, you can't see all the wonderful things that are happening and all the wonderful things that you've created. So for me, that perspective of being pulled away from the problems and firefighting and just being able to see, a grander picture and a grander scale, and see what is really the opportunity for us outside of Mumbai as well and everywhere else. I think for me that was the revelation.
I'd also like to know, what were there any practices or any rituals that you had to sort of ground you during this time? I feel a lot of times just going on a walk or going on a run really helps me just, cut off
Yep.
from everything, and or even having a shower and washing my hair also really helps. But I'm curious, like, do you have any rituals that you do to when you're sort of lost and you need some perspective?
I actually met somebody a couple of months ago who looked at me and at a lunch and looked at me and said, you seem quite stressed in life. Have you thought about like meditation? And I said, yeah, I try to meditate. I do that as often as I can, but somehow I just feel like I don't understand how one is supposed to do it. And I listen to all these guided ones. And so he's like, wait, let me connect you to my TM, Transcendental Meditation teacher. And it's been 4 months now. So for
Wow.
me, the routine now, I feel like meditation has really changed so much. I do it 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. It's the only way to like really for me to recharge, refresh, so just cut out all the noise and just connect and get back that energy, which kind of, because otherwise you're just running around the whole day. And for me, sometimes this is also a walk. In fact, anyone who wants to meet me now, I'm like, let's go for a walk. Like that's the best way of getting back to center. A good workout, and of course, reading. That really makes me feel like I'm not alone somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have the same feeling with reading. Pooja, this is something that I struggle with a lot. Obviously, as creative people struggle with, is just maintaining that consistent level of creativity. Whether you're a writer, whether you're a chef, it's a high demanding job. You have to keep coming up with new ideas, with fun things to do. As a journalist, you're often told you're only as good as your last story, which is a terrifying thought to think. But have you ever experienced a period of creative block, and how did you sort of overcome that?
I feel for the longest time I was just like some energizer bunny on so many, like I was just like trying to do so many things and doing, like I think COVID for me was a real leveler. For me, it was really a moment of be calm, realize who you are, realize who your friends are, what is the meaning of life. All of those things started happening. When you start, people call it the flow and people call it many different things. But once you kind of align to, purpose in a way, I think your output changes, the way you do things intentionally, it kind of changes. I find it a lot easier to be in the kitchen and come up with new things and recipes, and that kind of excites me a lot more. And because I'm not doing it 100% of my time, maybe 20% or 30% of my time that I do get to do it, I'm so happy to do it. And I feel like it kind of it like I the reason I do the podcast or I write the books, I just do it from a space of, oh, this is like an inner guidance, and I feel like I need to do this. I'm not doing it because everybody is doing it or because it's popular or because any of
Sure.
those. I'm doing it because I see I strongly within myself find that this is a strong intent and a purpose to do it. and I try to follow those cues. So I feel like when I follow them, it kind of everything falls into place. Obviously, sometimes you have to do things because you have to do them, and we have bills to pay and rent to pay, and sometimes you just have to do things. Maybe you don't have that much creativity there, and but then you borrow from the other spaces in your life and you get it. What I would do in the past is just take breaks every 3 months, travel a bit, and just get some inspiration from that. And then obviously when COVID happened, travel stops. So you're like, how do I get the inspiration now? At some point, you're doing something for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
There will be moments where it will feel tough, and you'll feel like you hit a wall. You feel like I feel that with writing a book right now. I'm not feeling anything right now. I did like 7 of them back to back, one each year for many years. And now I'm like, I've paused for 2 years, and I'm like, I really want the next one to be something that has some meaning, that I'm not doing because I'm just doing it. Like it has to mean
Sure.
something. And that feels like that channel is blocked. So I'm just letting it stay blocked, and I'm focusing on other things at the moment. And then when I feel inspired again, I'll go back there and kind of try to scratch that and be like, okay, are we feeling something there now? Is there something that feels right to do? And I'm kind of now reaching that with the book space. So I'm kind of feeling something new, and I'm maybe in a year, 2 years, I'll have something. But take
Amazing.
it easy. There's no reason for anybody to rush. And I think I'm talking to myself only. I'm giving myself advice. Just take it easy, Pooja. There's no reason to do everything all at once. Yeah.
And has there been, of course, you were talking about taking it easy, but has there been a time when you were like, okay, I have to do this, you do it, and it's just a big flop and it sort of blows up in your face, and there's been a lot of criticism for, or maybe some criticism, maybe not a lot of criticism for what it does. How have you navigated those spaces and those times?
I remember 2 years back, I suddenly decided that I'm going to change all our macaron flavors. I was like, we have 12, and I'm just going to,
Do it.
rapidly just change them, because who cares? Like, they're new flavors and they're great. So I let the classics, I kept two, three of the classics, and I changed everything else. And that
Blasphemy.
1 month was like a bloodbath. Like, I can't even tell you, like, sales just dipped so much. I was just like, never making a decision like this ever again. That's one of the big criticisms that my business coach, or like someone that I work closely with, always tells me, is like, it's amazing to go with your gut and instinct, but in a business, like, let's map that with some data and then make our decisions. Like, those are
Yeah.
things I've learned the hard way. But yeah, I think there's always something that you learn. These kind of things are still easier to navigate,
Navigate.
because you're like, when you run a business and you're also kind of a public figure. Uh, Initially, it used to, any kind of negative comments or reviews would feel like it's a reflection of you. So it
Yeah.
took me a long time to disassociate and be like, if someone doesn't like a product from your store or what you make, is not a direct reflection of who you are as a person. And I took like many years to distance myself and say, okay, we look at reviews, we every day we check our reviews, we see what we need to fix, if it's great, good, bad, whatever, right? We're on it. And then I finally reached a stage where I was like, okay, this me and Love 15 is different. It's not about me. And then I go and do a TV show. And now the criticism is all about me. So I'm like, on Twitter, and someone is like bashing me. And then I'm on Instagram and someone is saying, and like, you'll have 100 people say 100 nice things about you, but you have that one person who will say that one thing which you, anyways, if you're insecure and you're having a bad day and you're having a low day, you pick up on that, and that will just
Yeah.
like spike your insecurities. So I've had a lot of like therapy, meditation, learning to kind of now even disassociate what people say about me, and like, it's not about me, it's about them, and kind of like, separate that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that that must have taken a lot, because it's hard. It's really really hard to put yourself out there and yeah, and just deal with all of it, the ups, the downs. The a couple of years ago, you went into retail. You launched the cookies. You're now on Air India, which is very exciting. Could you tell me about that process? I'm sure it was did it stem from a point where you were what you were just talking about, or was it something that you always kind of wanted to do and eventually got to?
When Low 15 started becoming really popular and the brand started kind of becoming really big, it was very Mumbai focused, and we had this whole we thought that it was this problem that most brands have. We had the inverse problem where our brand was bigger than our business, and we're like, the opportunity for our business really lies to fix that delta, right? Like, how do you get like people in who follow us on Instagram or who know us, who've read about us, who've seen us, they would love to try the product, and we just don't have distribution to them yet. So we're like, how can we create a channel and get our products to them? This was already pre-COVID. We had started working on like a bunch of products that we wanted to launch, and me being me, I was like, no, this is not perfect enough, and this is not right, and this is not. And then COVID happened, and you're like, we gotta get the best product that we can out right now, and packaging and all will figure itself out. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. It'll evolve into what it has to. And and we launched in COVID, and it was we never had a website before that. Can you believe that? To think that 4 years ago, till about 4 years ago, you don't have a website.
That's
So we
insane.
launched a website, and the first day we were making the hot chocolate mixes, and we were I was just showcasing them on Instagram, and we're like, okay, let's open pre-orders, because we're like, we don't want to waste and we don't want to do all this. So we'll start pre-orders and we'll see. So the kitchen, we were like just a few of us, because COVID, not many people were coming to work. And we're like, okay, how many do we make? We're like, maybe we'll make about 200 sachets, and we'll ship them and blah blah blah. And we're like, okay, let's go ahead. And we started orders, and we said 48 hours, and our target was 200. Smita, within the first 12 hours, we had crossed 1,200
Oh
orders,
my god.
and this is with zero money spent on marketing, zero money spent
Amazing.
on any kind of acquisition. It's just people who really love the product and love the brand, and they wanted to have a product. It's an expensive product. It's not something that is, you're fighting at on price,
Sure.
but people are looking to buy. For me, that was like, the moment where I was like, there is something in
Opportunity.
this, and it should be
Yeah.
explored. Yeah, opportunity for sure. And the landscape of packaged premium desserts in India doesn't largely exist, right? You don't have much. You have your basic ones, and then you have imported, but that mass premium sort of
Yeah.
brand in India in the packaged dessert doesn't exist. So for me, I thought that was like a really good opportunity for us to play in, and it would be great to see that. Now, FMCG is a different beast altogether, and if I start talking about it, I'll take maybe 5 episodes to just talk about everything I've learned about that side of the business. For me, it's the creation of the product, and then seeing it, come to life, and then seeing it everywhere, and people sending us pictures of it from their homes. And, that's the stuff that really matters and that I really love to do. And we maybe have a few more B2B sort of collaborations coming up soon that are exciting. So let's hope for the
Amazing.
best.
Amazing. It was really interesting to also just see the community respond in the way they did. When it came to your cookies, when it came to the hot chocolate, and of course you launched the Taste Club around then. So I guess that sort of even fueled the excitement around the new products. I know for you, obviously, that building community and mentoring young people in the space has been a priority. Could you talk to me a little bit about this and why you love doing it? One would assume that you have no time, but talk to me about why you do it.
Yeah. I just feel that when I started out, I kind of didn't have much help or advice in the sense of what I should be doing. I don't spend too much time or as much time as I would like mentoring people, but whenever anyone writes to me with questions, and I try to share my way of mentoring is trying to share my journey in the most real manner, so that you can learn the hard stuff that learn from me and use that experience. I love the sense of community, because for me that's been the greatest joy of building Love 15, right? Like, I have people that used to buy from us, whose wedding cake we made, whose birth, the babies, like their birth announcement, and now the
Wow.
kid is like 9 years old and comes and says, auntie,
Wow.
my favorite flavor is a rose macaroon, my favorite dessert is a macaroon. So like, I feel like seeing that journey, and that
Yeah.
to me, that is that's really exciting, because somewhere I read, I don't remember where, but it said like, oh, if your business can get 1,000 fans or 1,000 people to support it, it would be,
Yeah.
it's successful.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, when we started the Taste Club, we were like, okay, we know, we over the years we've had thousands and thousands of customers. Some have had great experiences, some maybe not so good. And but how do we really get the people who will be our, like, spokespeople, who do
Yeah.
the heavy lifting for us? And that's how the Taste Club started. And it started from a simple community, like a simple Instagram post of saying, we need help and
Mhm.
we want you to help us. And today that's like 20,000 people across India, that I know if I ever want, to send a product to them to get feedback, that I would get real accurate feedback, and not something which is just like a marketing gimmick. We really use it to get market insight and
Mhm.
understand whether people will buy it or not. We've actually developed some products that we sent out of the Taste Club that didn't pass, and then we actually didn't launch them. So
Oh wow.
they've been really helpful. Bill, and now we've started doing offline events, and it's amazing to see all of them. And
Mhm.
the greatest thing, even when I would take workshops, is how people meet each other and how they become friends with each other. And it's not only, the community is not only, oh, it's a love reading thing, but now they've found people who love similar things. And when we did a Taste Club meetup last week or the week before last, you know, everyone was just like, the one thing they all told me is like, thank you so much. We made so many new friends today. And I
Oh.
just thought that was, I just thought that was really cool. And to be able to enable that is amazing. And I just grew up watching Oprah and seeing all the work that she did. And somewhere, it was like a seed that was put in that, okay, someday you got to do that as well. So taking it as it comes.
Yeah. You get a macaron. You get a macaron.
Everybody gets a back.
Awesome. Super. Pooja, of course, the food industry is constantly evolving. How do you sort of stay ahead of trends? Because I guess there's no real way to stay ahead of trends. But how do you? What is your
I
method?
don't think I do. Especially now, it's very hard, Smita, because everything is changing like every other day.
Yeah.
Some days they're some days they're making a croissant square, okay, and then there's a cookie in a croissant. Then the croissants become flat. Then the croissants become a giant croissant that's being dipped
Yeah.
in coffee. I'm like, I can't keep up. I don't know what is trending and what is the next trend and what everybody's
Yeah.
doing. So I actually choose not to keep up with the trends, because it's all for social media and it changes really fast. And I don't think that there's anything there which, some larger trends that you see, okay, people are moving towards eating a certain kind of way.
When I'm given a drink that has this very beautiful but like insanely large garnish, I'm like, so do I eat it? Like, do I put it on the side? Like, what do I do first? Is this just for the picture? What's going on?
I'm going to interview you now. What is the one trend that you absolutely can't stand right now in the food world?
Um, so this is a trend that like has been around for some time, but I feel like a lot of restaurants and restaurateurs do it is like a neon sign and a giant animal, like a giant flamingo or a, I don't know, fruit or something. And I'm just like, you don't need it. Like, just build a good product. You don't need a
Smita,
giant
the
flamingo.
kids will take pictures of it. So
Yeah, but
that's
I mean, do something else. Like, does it have to be the giant flamingo? It's just like, yeah, when I see a restaurant, I'm just like, oh no, I can't.
I'll keep that in mind for the next place that we do.
In case, I'm pretty sure you're not going to have giant pink flamingos, but just in case. That brings me to my next question. What's next for Love 15 and for you?
What's next? That is a question that I'm also still working around. Definitely scale and opening in other cities is key, and I'm trying to figure out what the best route to do that is. Whether to find a strategic partner who already has distribution in different cities, so tying up with someone like that and scaling, or is it to get investment, growth capital, etc., etc. So the answer is I would love to see Love 15 in different cities. I'm currently trying to figure out how to make that happen. We'll start eliminating things from the menu and changing the menu around a bit and making it more modern as to what
Sure.
things are available today. So that is the plan for Low 15. For me, I don't know, man. I just try to, in my meditation, connect with that flow and see what should come next. Maybe another season of the podcast, or I've been really dabbling with kids' storybooks. So that's something that I really want to do. And then, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe more TV because I really enjoyed it. So we'll see.
Definitely the first person to say that you enjoyed being on a reality TV show. We're going to move into our rapid fire section. Basically, I
Oh
say a
God, I'm
word.
gonna kill you.
I say a word, and you just tell me the first thing that pops into your head. So, are you ready,
Will
Pooja?
you get me into troubles? I'm very diplomatic as a person. Okay.
Really? First word is macaron.
Paris.
Pastry.
Paris.
Success.
Not real.
The word no.
Acceptable.
Love.
I was gonna say macaron and then I was gonna say love is love 15. So yeah, macaron and love 15.
Home.
Cozy.
Sugar.
Hi.
World domination.
Uh,
It's fine, you can say your name. It's fine.
no. World domination. I will just say aspirations.
What's the one thing that no one told you when you were starting out?
How difficult it would be to manage people.
And the one thing you wish someone told you uh, when you started out?
How important it is to choose the right team and find people who have complementary skill sets than you.
Super. Thank you so much, Pooja. This has been a lot of fun.
Sorry, my rapid fire was quite boring. I'm sorry about that. No hamper.
It's fine. We no hamper, unfortunately. No Love 15 hamper for you. But thank you so much for your time and just for being so very generous with all of your answers. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. See you soon. Like, share, and subscribe to the Big Food Energy podcast for more inspirational and important stories from the world of food.